Welcome to the 2023 Commissioners Edition of In the Dugout. We wanted to do one specifically for commissioners this evening. And we're going to have a very focused lineup here tonight as we begin to talk about SportsEngine HQ and what it means for the 2023 season. While we wanted to touch on other topics, rule changes and other items that require commissioners' focus and attention, it is clear that we need to spend some time talking about SportsEngine HQ, some of the changes that are now upon us here in the 23 season, and some of the new functionality and tools that you as a commissioner will have under this new platform. So tonight, in our typical forums, if you are familiar, there is a Q&A section at the bottom. So when you take your mouse over the bottom of the screen, you'll see a toolbar at the bottom with Q&A. If you have any questions during tonight's webinar, please type them in. And we are going to be working behind the scenes to answer them during tonight's Q&A. And if we don't get to you tonight, we will certainly be going back over them tomorrow to be able to reach out to you and provide any answers that we might not be able to get to this evening. We also have in the chat Babe Ruth League in the Dugout, which will give you access to the previous In the Dugout shows. Our last one on SportsEngine covered topics with SportsEngine from the league side. Tonight, we will be covering some similar items, but again, this is going to be with some of the functionality for you as a commissioner in our program. So with that, before we get started with SportsEngine, we wanted to kind of break it up here a little bit, and let's get started with our new commissioners toolkit that we're going to be sending out. This is something that we have been working on here at headquarters with the staff. And over the years, many commissioners have commented to myself and Robert, certainly recently Daniela and Michael, about having a slide deck or tools that would be things that they could take with them to meetings with potential new leagues, programs, as well as something that they could ultimately email. So we have worked together to create a head of the game deck here. And this is a great deck that would help with trying to explain the different divisions of Babe Ruth League, from Cal Ripken, the Cal Ripken divisions, ages 4 to 12, Babe Ruth Baseball, ages 13 to 18, Babe Ruth Softball, and our Bambino Buddy Ball division. This will give an excellent opportunity for you to touch on different topics with the leagues. To maybe a league is only maybe coming to you to talk about Cal Ripken baseball, but maybe they have a softball program in town, or they have an older division of baseball that might be available, and you might be able to connect with them to talk about all the different divisions that fall underneath Babe Ruth League. It also gives a regional breakdown to explain the program, so that this way that they understand the structure, working your way up from the league to district to state to region, and ultimately here at headquarters or the World Series in the different age groups. It also explains some of the different items that we do here for our local leagues and programs, as far as the ability to charter and insurance for local leagues, communication tools, access to different national sponsors benefits. One that comes to mind are the leagues that chartered early this year. Each of the first 350 leagues that chartered this year received an opening day banner brought to you by Dick's Sporting Goods, and that they were able to hang up at their park and have for their opening day of their season, along with all the different items that also come in their league kit for a rule book for the league president, as well as for each additional team that's chartered, a local league guide, access to the Babe Ruth Alumni Association, monthly webinars, and other types of things that come with being with Babe Ruth League. Gives you an opportunity to kind of explain the program, that Babe Ruth is large enough to service a local league, but also small enough to know everybody. So this deck is going to be emailed to everybody with some updates. So look out for this new deck. And after you get it, if there's anything that you want to help customize the deck, potentially for your state or region, just let us know. You can contact Robert, Daniela, or Michael, and we will work to help customize the deck even more based off of your local needs that you need when going out to local programs to talk. So with that, let's talk about SportsEngine HQ and the platform that's coming on here for the season. This has been a work in progress, continues to be. And as we transition from Sports Sign Up Play over to Babe Ruth League, I wanted to introduce Ryan Rodabaugh from SportsEngine, and also Jessica Labella from our side as a customer service rep. Many of you in the Southeast region know Jessica from calling or emailing in for the many years that she has been here. We actually had Jess step away from Babe Ruth for, I don't know, a little over a year or so. I don't even know if it was that long, but she is back, and we're actually really glad to have Jessica helping out our league. She has certainly been a huge help inside our office here, working with Ryan and the members of SportsEngine to get the leagues in a better place with SportsEngine HQ. I'd like to have Ryan, if you could talk a little bit about, get us going with setting up the safety, membership, and background checks.
Yeah, thanks, Rob. No, I'm really happy to be here tonight. Thanks, Jess, for jumping in as well. As many of you well know, we're underway. It feels like yesterday we were wrapping up World Series last year, and now here we are kind of kicking off the season in some of the different regions. So glad everybody's tuning in. Happy to keep this topic because it's top of mind for everyone going into the season, and just really stress the importance of getting your leagues up and running, and walking through some of the features and benefits that are new this year for commissioners to have visibility into, as well as give you guys kind of an under the hood look at what your leagues are kind of going through inside of SportsEngine today as they get up and running.
Okay, great. So as everybody knows, when you were with Sports Sign Up Play, the commissioners, as a commissioner, you did not necessarily have access to the back end side where you could see what leagues were putting together from the standpoint of rosters and where they were at. Typically, you used your commissioner portal to access submitted rosters. Sometimes it worked really good when leagues had all of their stuff in, but it also created a hard time for some commissioners that were working with leagues that were telling them you submitted rosters but you can't see them. This new giving all the commissioners access to SportsEngine HQ is now going to give you real-time access for you to see what is happening and where a league is at as it relates to doing rosters, the background checks, and those types of things. You'll actually be able to see a lot of the same things that we can see here at Babe Ruth headquarters. This will not take the place of your commissioner portal. Your commissioner portal will still be there for you to access, your letters of eligibility and other items as it pertains to the leagues. But we wanted to give you guys the ability to see more information, and this is certainly going to help with doing that. Now, those of you who have been in the dugouts in the past or have already had your regional meetings this fall, this will sound as a repeat. But for those of you who haven't, I wanted to explain why are we changing from Sports Sign Up Play and why SportsEngine HQ in 2023. Well, SportsEngine, which is owned by NBC Universal, acquired Sports Sign Up Play back in 2017. Since then, it has been managed and operated by SportsEngine. And over the years, development side of Sports Sign Up Play has started to slow, as SportsEngine's focus has been to get everybody onto one unified platform. The decision was made well over a year ago that 2023 was going to be the year that Babe Ruth made this switch. So this switch is very common to the switch that we made back in 2012 when we moved from Babe Ruth Online to Sports Sign Up Play. This is not necessarily something that we all really wanted to do. There's some aspects of Sports Sign Up Play that we wanted to maybe hold on to a little bit longer. But in the end, biting the bullet and moving forward is actually going to be more beneficial in the long run and make things easier for our leagues and certainly you as commissioners to manage roster submissions and safety membership information.
Certainly, Rob, and I think with that, I do want to acknowledge that any change is going to be hard at first. So the change management, while we definitely hear some of the feedback and everything with people getting acclimated to the new system, we're well aware, and we are putting our support resources as well as working in collaboration with the Babe Ruth staff on just trying to get everybody set up for a successful 2023 season. And to your point, Rob, hopefully set you up for success moving forward. I think long term, as we go through some of the features and enhancements tonight and then ongoing, you'll see that the long-term benefit really is there with some of the development work that we've done on the SportsEngine platform. So two main topics that I want to introduce to some of you. Some of you have probably already heard from whether you're leagues or you are affiliated with a local league yourself. But we've kind of shifted the Babe Ruth League safety program, which was historically maybe done through the local league on Sports Sign Up Play or through the national registration on SportsEngine, is now under this terminology of memberships. So kind of a new concept for a lot of leagues, and I think there's been a little bit of change management there. So want to talk about that a little tonight and show you some screenshots of what leagues are experiencing and what that workflow looks like for a league, as well as yourselves as you gain access into your own SportsEngine HQs. And then also touch on the roster submission. As Rob pointed out, that's no longer in Sports Sign Up Play, but will be living in SportsEngine moving forward and in the season management module within SportsEngine. So we're really excited to roll this out and get Babe Ruth on to provide really that unified customer experience. We have a support team that's ready and equipped to handle this platform, as opposed to leagues living all in kind of different buckets, if you will.
Now, Ryan, just to hop in for one sec, because one of the things as we go to SportsEngine HQ, there is some terminology differences that sometimes confuse people that I just wanted to touch on. As far as the memberships, Ryan, people believe that because we're using that term memberships because that's an account within SportsEngine. A lot of people believe when they signing up for now a membership, they believe that there's some type of cost associated with that, or there's some type of extra fee. Babe Ruth League doesn't have any type of national membership for individuals and stuff. The membership is just the idea of setting up an account. So we just wanted to clarify, because I know that some of the commissioners and leagues have questions sometimes, well, why do I have to be a member? So that's really what it is. You're setting up an account.
You're exactly right, Rob. And that's a great call out there, is that it's a free membership, but what it's doing is actually unlocking some of the automation and the eligibility engine that SportsEngine has behind memberships. So taking the onus off of some of those administrators to manually tracking who has an updated background check or abuse training, and letting the system really do what it's designed to do and prompt those individuals to stay compliant and really just keep everybody's lives a little bit more streamlined and up to date. So yeah, as we kind of dive into it, we'll see some screenshots of how it all works behind the scenes. But before we jump into some of the safety memberships and the rostering, I did want to touch on the Babe Ruth League Academy. So this is something that we've specifically built and tailored to Babe Ruth League and all the members. So when you first log in as an administrator, whether it's your local league or you're a commissioner on a state or regional level, you'll be prompted with this welcome to SportsEngine HQ and an opportunity to go through the academy. And really what that is, it's these walkthroughs and guides that kind of hold your hand through some of the processes that you are obligated to follow as part of a Babe Ruth charter. All this is located. If you do click out of it or want to go back to it, you can always go back into the Need Help tab on the right-hand screen inside of your HQ. And when I say HQ, I am referring to kind of your back office that we've now given local leagues, whether they were a paid SportsEngine customer using registration tools and everything like that, or they were historically just a roster upload league. They all have this access to an HQ now, which is another new concept in some of the change management. We're giving everybody this interface and this platform to utilize to help just make their lives easier. So they all have access to the screen you're seeing now, where they can go and need help and contact support or reach out with any questions that they might have when they're going through the process. So inside of that help screen, you see that Academy tab highlighted here, and then Babe Ruth, and it'll unlock some of those courses or those walkthroughs that we've created for some of the processes. So excited to roll that out and curious to get commissioners' feedback too. So please feel free to take a course or go through the course and let us know if you run into anything or have suggestions. because this is something that's ongoing that we can kind of continue to build on. It's by no means is it done with what you see today. Jumping into the memberships and eligibility that I mentioned, within a local league, they have this back office on that left-hand navigation, their memberships tab. That is where they'll actually access how they view a real-time dashboard of all the coaches who are either eligible or ineligible to participate and be rostered. Now, before doing so, they would need to get them through and into their directory by means of that public club assignment link that we've touched on some of the league webinars already and worked with leagues through our support channels to get them more understanding of how they get people into their membership database. But once that starts to get populated, we're looking at year one being the biggest lift, obviously, but then year over year, they're going to have this ongoing coach membership database that's just going to trigger eligibility requirements for these coaches automatically. And so if we go to the next slide, you'll see a little bit more when we go into the eligibility dashboard, what it looks like for the admins who are looking at maybe real-time tracking. So maybe they invited all their coaches for the 2023 spring season into the memberships, and now this database starts to populate. From there, you can click into a coach and see which credentials that might be outstanding, and then also send automated reminders to those individuals to complete those requirements. So you're starting to see a little bit more of where the automation and the reason behind going from simply just a registration to this memberships and eligibility tool. I think while it is a little bit complex at first for some of the leagues and the admins to understand, once they get in here, some of the support items that we used to deal with historically on background checks was trying to navigate and understand where their coaches were in the process. And now that it's right there in front of them to understand, I guess, who's eligible, who can be on a roster and who can't. So really excited for some of the automation here.
And so, this is another big change, everybody, from what a local league saw previously, as Ryan has mentioned here. One of the complaints that leagues brought up about doing the background checks and trying to know in the past about, hey, my coach said that he did the background check. I gave him a discount code or the individual paid for it. They said they did it, but I don't have any record of it. Now a league president is actually able to go in and see if the coach has started the process, if it's waiting for information to come back, and if it's pending, or whether or not if it's actually completed and finished. At the same token, they can also do the same thing for abuse prevention training. Is also part of that background check. So it gives them the insights on the timelines that previously they didn't have. It will also this time show them whether or not a coach or volunteer who did a background check actually failed and is deemed ineligible. It's not going to tell them as to the contents of the screen. That won't be released. But in the past with Sports Sign Up Play, those people just dropped off the list, and then they were waiting for a manual email to come from our office to explain why the person, dropped off their list. So this is one of the ways in which a local league can actually track every volunteer in their program.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks, Rob. And one thing I see some questions coming in from the Q&A as well. I do want to expand a little bit on year one, how we are implementing this and honoring the historic background checks. So the system is designed to look up as long as somebody comes in with the same date of birth and email address, and then there's a name match component as well, then the system will automatically pick up if they had a background screen that deems them eligible from day one. So we are getting some support inquiries from leagues today as to, this coach says they have a background check within the last year. Why are it's saying that they needed one? Well, if they come in through our support or contact us, we can do a little manual lookup if needed. So a lot of times it's just not a date of birth, but an email or a name mismatch in our records, and we can merge their old profiles or anything like that. So it'll trigger the proper eligibility. And then one other thing I want to mention is that there are some instances where people are under this expiring soon status for some of their credentials. And what that really means is that it's giving them a 60-day notice of that they'll be expiring. And the goal behind that is to give them advance heads up so they can be proactive to take their background screening and become eligible for it before they need to be on a roster. Now, while we don't have admin action to take on those expiring soon credentials, you can actually have the individual log into their SportsEngine profile, and they can go in and complete the screening. So the next screen actually gives you a little bit more of a view into what a user sees when they get an email from their membership. So on that right-hand side, you see kind of, if I'm a coach and you invited me to a Babe Ruth League local league membership, I get an email and a prompt to complete the membership. Once I do so, I get this prompt to say, continue to my SportsEngine. So if they click that button or log into SportsEngine, they'll actually see their membership and any outstanding or expiring soon credentials that they can go ahead and update within the system. So a nice little tool there to where they can be proactive. While I do hear some of the feedback of what can you do as an admin or a commissioner to help the coach, honestly, the first thing I would say is go log in and just see where, locate your membership, and then complete your screening in advance of it expiring. And then again, you see here from a user's perspective. So this is me signed in as a coach. I can go to my profile and I'll see this membership, and the same thing here with that complete screening link. If I was in an expiring soon status, I could actually complete my screening as well. And then you have to see that actual email that I can do. So a couple different ways or entry points, so to speak, for a coach or a volunteer to go ahead and complete some of the requirements that it's prompting them to take.
And Ryan, just one little note, because we are talking with commissioners here tonight. Most of the commissioners have been used to going through at least, I think, 2 rounds. I think this would have been the 3rd round of them doing their background checks as a commissioner in the program. Those background checks typically would have been done in the fall, in September, October timeframe of 2022, last fall. However, we have delayed it, and we will have it available to commissioners starting in the fall of 23, so this fall, and it will coincide now with the election year for district and state commissioners. So it'll tie together with the annual elections for district and states, and will begin in the fall. So commissioners who are looking to do a background check for this year as a commissioner, you will do that in September and October, and you will receive notification of that from Babe Ruth headquarters to complete.
Before we jump into season management and roster compliance, I did have one other thing I wanted to note. And as commissioners, if you have not received access to your state or region page as of today, there is ongoing communications out to you to get you the access you need. And one thing I just wanted to highlight is what we just walked through as from a league's perspective and an administrator. You also have as a commissioner for all your leagues underneath your purview. So if I'm a state, I could see all my leagues and all the coaches underneath there, run some filtering based on a per league basis. So I would encourage you all to go in there and kind of play around and see what visibility you do have and where you can actually help support some of the leagues in, and just making sure the coaches and the leagues have what they need in prep for roster time. Jumping into season management. So roster process that historically lived in sports sign-up play. I wanted to show this because, again, the kind of the highlight here is the automation that behind some of the technology inside SportsEngine. Basically, what we've built is a way for Babe Ruth to manage their chartered leagues and commissioners from the state and region level to all kind of report and comply with the parameters that are set in place. So as Babe Ruth set up their seasons that leagues will connect to, they set parameters for ages, the divisions, and all these compliance rules for roster limits or how many staff need to be on a team. And then of course that team fee paid, which is kind of the connectivity to the charter system. So all that is built kind of on the back end to help run some of this automation that we're speaking of, and we'll show you here through the visuals. But just to give you an idea of how it's all flowing. So when you do connect from a local league, you connect your seasons all the way up to Babe Ruth, all these automations happening to ensure that, hey, we have the right people on the right rosters based on the age groups, divisions, genders, etc. And then it's going to flag and put little tags on anything that needs attention, which would also be a trigger for commissioners to maybe come behind and historically maybe had to take action, whether it be inside the system or outside of the system, however you handled it previously. Really, the system is taking a lot of that onus off, but giving you at least the visibility and oversight to, at times, maybe honor approvals or exceptions for individuals to be rostered on a certain age group, anything like that. And then, of course, supporting the leagues is going to be the key, right? So going in behind the leagues and seeing, hey, I see that 8 of your 9 teams look good, the team's fee is paid, but one saying it needs attention, and you need to reach out to Babe Ruth and just make sure that the charter system's recognizing the payment. Or maybe it's you have a couple coaches who are ineligible, which is it's flagging it needs attention. Anything like that that might trigger one of those compliance rules is not only visible for the league, but also for the commissioners above them. So that's a nice enhancement, I think, going from the sports sign up play over to SportsEngine within the season management module. What you'll see here is the affiliates or the local leagues, when they go into the season management module within SportsEngine HQ, they'll be prompted to create their season. And the important thing to note here is that they're not making a connection to Babe Ruth seasons and divisions until the next steps. So they can create their season really in any manner that they see fit and create their divisions, because we know that local leagues may operate slightly different or have some variation from the Babe Ruth standardization. So they can run that, but then they can connect their season. And once that connection is made, then they can actually map to a Babe Ruth league season and the divisions and corresponding teams that they would share up. So this is kind of just a preview into that workflow that they when they go in, they're creating their season really for their own league benefit, and then they connect it to Babe Ruth. And then once that connection is established, then it unlocks really that gate of passing the data all the way up through the state, the region, and then ultimately the parent organization at Babe Ruth headquarters. So adding players and staff to their teams. So similar to before in sports sign up play, there's a majority of leagues are coming in here really for just the roster process, and maybe they're importing that information. Now there's an enhanced import tool for leagues to import their teams and their individuals. And then once they're in their system, they can drag and drop, create their teams, or they can already predetermine their teams upon the import. What I really wanted to just show here is that because there's some variance in how leagues are using SportsEngine today, you can see kind of how the interface works, where if I'm a premium user of SportsEngine, I use it for my registration. My directory might already be populated with all my individuals or my players, and I'm just dragging and dropping and creating my teams. So it's as easy as that. A few different ways or entry points for the individuals to get into the database to then be rostered. But from there, you see that it's as simple as kind of creating the leagues and then or creating the teams and then dragging and dropping those individuals over to that player pool onto their respective teams. And the same would go for staff as well.
Now, Ryan, one of the things when talking about the leagues that are not on the SportsEngine platform, they're using what we call the freemium, where they're going in and now they're using whatever platform that they've collected their roster data, and they're doing what you say as far as uploading that CSV file. One of the biggest changes I think I've seen that was positive in a very good direction for them was in the help section. There is actually, instead of just a step-by-step guide of where you would print out and have directions next to you as you're working to upload the rosters, it will actually walk you through the process on the screen. So it will literally highlight the areas. You'll click on it with your mouse, that certain area. You'll answer the questions that it's asking you to navigate through those screens, upload your file. And then if your file is not formatted properly, it would also guide you as to how to manipulate the data so that so a local league can actually enter that data rather easily. So those problems that we used to have when leagues would call in and say that they would load their stuff in the sports sign up play, and they would turn around and say, well, it's not accepting my info, or I'm getting all these errors and I don't know why. Well, now with the step-by-step walkthrough for them, it should take a lot of that burden off of them. It will literally make it where they only have to follow the direction on the screen that's navigating them through.
Yeah, you're exactly right, Rob, and that's something that's highlighted in that Babe Ruth League Academy I touched on at the beginning. But those walkthroughs, there's a whole collection of walkthroughs that, like you said, kind of walk them step by step through some of these processes that are specific to Babe Ruth. But 2 points on that: the enhancements to the import tool are also a huge upgrade as well. As you know, on Sports Sign Up Play, they were kind of flying blind, so to speak, on hey, I imported it, but I don't know why it's rejecting it, or the formatting is off. Now, when it imports, it actually allows you to map certain fields to what Babe Ruth needs, and they can kind of inline make those edits or adjustments for those import. And I know that's the vast majority of Babe Ruth leagues today that are going through that workflow. So yeah, we're excited about that one. And then I know I touched on sharing teams. So once that connection to Babe Ruth is made, they create their teams and they're done rostering. Now it's time to actually share that team up to the parent organization. So my roster exists within my local league, but not until I hit that share button does it go up. And that's my attempt to share it and make that my official Babe Ruth League roster. And that's where those compliance rules come into effect, and it might flag maybe 14 of your 15 rostered staff and players are okay and good, and they're showing up on the Babe Ruth roster, but there's one that just needs to still fulfill their membership obligations or their credentials. But it gives you the opportunity and the visibility to do so and take action. So you can prompt the coach right from this screen to go ahead and fulfill the membership piece. So it's giving you more tools at your disposal to get through the roster or the rostering process without further hiccup, in my opinion. And then expanding on the sharing teams here, you can kind of see a little bit more expanded view into, okay, how many of these need attention versus they're done when I share my teams up. And then you can drill into an individual that, hey, why is it prompting this team or saying that this team needs attention? Maybe it's they don't have the proper number of staff, or there's somebody in the age group that's misassigned. So a few reasons of why they might get flagged or needs attention, but it doesn't necessarily stop them from completing their process, and then they can just update the shared roster once they take the proper action. So it's all lives in there. They're not having to start from scratch once they go back and have to say, oh, this roster didn't go through. It's kind of it's a continuous workflow. And then we just want to reiterate some of these support materials. Again, on that right-hand side of the screen within your SportsEngine account and within a local league SportsEngine account is need help. Highly encouraged to do the academy first and foremost, and then there's additional walkthroughs and help articles. And then there's the Babe Ruth Safe page is going to give an introduction and a better understanding for leagues to just familiarize themselves with the new workflow for this year, that shift from background screening and abuse training, how it existed before this year and now what it's like under 2023, as well as the discount code process. I know we do get a lot of questions about people trying to cover the cost on behalf of the coaches and volunteers. There's information on that piece as well within the Babe Ruth Safe page and how they can go about getting those discount codes. And then the last thing is the first season guide, which is being circulated and distributed for any individuals or leagues that reach out to our support team. Oftentimes we'll go ahead and attach that just for their reference in case they have not been able to view that as well. Really just that intent was for those people who did like the printed instructions and step-by-step that they had in Sports Sign Up Play. The SportsEngine HQ first season guide mimics a lot of that with just kind of step-by-step for some of those Babe Ruth League processes.
And I would add, before we go into some additional Q&As, Ryan, is that the Babe Ruth Academy that's in the need help section, that academy takes roughly 10 to 15 minutes for the series of walkthroughs to complete. It's actually something that's very helpful to kind of continue to go back over. One of the things that I have found personally on my end with having to go through this is it's one of those things where repetition, it's one thing to kind of hear it, maybe see it, you start doing it, and the more that you actually are in the throes of it, the more and more it becomes easier to grab. So the walkthroughs are pretty nice to kind of take you through where you can actually touch the screen, move the mouse, and know where you're kind of clicking instead of just following a set of directions, on the side to turn around and do. So I know personally that that the academy section and the ability to have the change on the CSV uploading was obviously a major positive, I would say, from Sports Sign Up Play so far. It's obviously we're not at the point where many leagues are uploading their rosters in most of the country yet, But we are starting to see some positive feedback from those that are starting that process in some of the warmer climate states for the regular season already.
Sure. And I see a couple questions coming in here. One I wanted to touch on is some of you may be in your commissioner SportsEngine site already and messing around in the season management to see what leagues have submitted, which haven't. I will note that there's ongoing enhancements coming to some of the filtering options. So right now, I think if you play with some of the filterings just to kind of see like, oh, I want to see such and such league within my region or my territory. Right now, I think you're pretty limited on how you can filter team names, season name, etc. Some of those enhancements will be coming here shortly as well, just to give more workflows and tools at the commissioner's disposal so that you guys can jump in and support leagues as needed.
Jess, I know that you have been helping big time here behind the scenes, helping to answer a lot of the Q&As for the commissioners going through here as Ryan was going through the deck. Based on some of the Q&As and some of the things that you're dealing with from the emails and phone calls that are coming into headquarters, as well as you have been heading up collecting different examples that maybe our staff have had issues with as we're working between our support team and SportsEngine support team. Anything that you wanted to touch on or things that are standing out to you that would, that you would want to highlight to some of the commissioners?
Hi, everyone. Yeah, I would start by just saying that today, all of the commissioner sites should have been connected. So you should have gotten an email if you are a state or a regional commissioner and you hadn't claimed your site yet. You should have gotten an email today. That's just for regional and state commissioners. I wanted to answer real quick before I get into anything. Paul's from Indiana District Commissioner asking, how do I get started in SportsEngine HQ? And so just to answer that for any district commissioners that might be on right now, the HQ current admin would have to add you. So you would just need to get with your state commissioner to add you into that state's HQ site.
Yep, and just to expand on that, so the hierarchy today, as it works, is Babe Ruth national, regions, states, and local leagues. With year one, kind of thinking that district commissioners can work with their state commissioners to get access or purview into any of their leagues. So the state would be the kind of the level that they need to reach out to and get some of those permissions. So Jessica, you mentioned, I appreciate the work that you and your team did behind the scenes to just make sure that all the states and regions should have at least received emails to go in and access their HQ, but please drop your information in if you do not have that, or if there's somebody else that we need to get added, we could certainly take a look at that for you.
Yeah, and I would just also add, the biggest part, and Rob went through this, Ryan went through this, but once the leagues have gotten the memberships down and they have full access and they're able to navigate it a little bit, they seem to be a little more comfortable. I think what I've noticed just as service rep and taking the calls is the stress of change. And I know I can obviously relate with that a lot. And it does take a little bit to just, learn something new. But we're here, you guys know us, all the girls here, we're just walking them through the best we can, just to kind of, just giving them a brief overview. But anytime we have had to pass things on to SportsEngine to kind of look in on the back end with whether or not somebody's background check is actually valid, that's not showing up as eligible, they've been good with just making that change and relatively seamless just in one email encounter. So that's kind of like the biggest question we've been getting right now is on background check coaches' eligibilities, and making sure that they have full access into their system. I know I oversee the Southeast region, and so yes, some leagues are trying to submit rosters, and so I am getting some of those calls, so they're the guinea pigs. So, but overall, we're mostly getting background check membership questions at the current time.
Okay. One of the things I wanted to kind of touch on with the commissioners here too is over the last 2 weeks, Ryan and I have been working together with Ryan's counterparts at SportsEngine to kind of address some areas on the support side, both from the Babe Ruth support side as well as the SportsEngine support side. And these discussions have gone, all the way up the chain of command at SportsEngine. And I'm happy to report that over these last 10 days or so, we are starting to begin to start seeing some of the integration that we were really looking for in some of our discussions. And to give you guys an example, if a local league is contacting SportsEngine and asking for support on a particular item, if there are issues that maybe the particular league has that maybe are more suited for us to handle at Babe Ruth headquarters, we are now in the process of setting up a back channel of information for our support teams to communicate with one another. That's something that hasn't been done here in the first couple months, and we're in the process of standing that up with SportsEngine's team members, and we think that that's going to go a long way in helping to support the leagues. The next thing that we would also ask of the commissioners that we've talked about in some of the regional meetings and even some state meetings that we have been to is if a local league is having an issue with trying to get started, trying to do something, they should be welcome to contact us here at headquarters. Their service representative, if they may not have every single answer at the ready for them, will work with them to get the answers for them and assist them. Our biggest effort here this year is obviously standing up all of the leagues, which we have now transitioned all of the leagues to have accounts here in the last month. We're now in the process of standing up the state commissioners and then regional commissioners. And what we want to do is make sure that everybody is up and running so that this way, come as we move forward in the season, we really want to focus as state commissioners can and district commissioners to help leagues get their regular season rosters in much closer to the start of regular season play instead of waiting as many do. And frankly, I must confess, as I did as a league president back in the day, waited to do them until it was closer to tournament time. We just feel that if the local league is going to have problems, as Jess mentioned, with stuff that's new, it creates stress when things are new. It's not the same place to do things. If we can get them to come in sooner, that would help mitigate some of that added stress on the local league volunteer trying to get their rosters inputted instead of waiting until maybe the day before your credential meeting in order to get stuff done. So, Ryan, Jess.
No, I appreciate it. I'm working through some of these questions, good questions. I know we went a little quick going through some of the visuals, but I'm happy to work with any commissioners who, obviously those who are willing to jump in and want to learn more about so they can help support their leagues. Please reach out to kind of leave your information in the chat and we can work with maybe a format or what we can provide to the commissioner specifically to give you a little bit more understanding or education to take back to your leagues and help them through some of these processes. Again, it's kind of a joint effort year one. We appreciate as many hands who can kind of jump in and willing to support the leagues through the transition as possible. But knowing that we're here on the SportsEngine side, certainly to address any of the technology issues and working with the Babe Ruth through the new processes. So, I see a few others who maybe mentioned that they don't have access yet on the SportsEngine HQ, and maybe I wasn't clear on this in the kind of the deck and the presentation. Each state and region has a specific SportsEngine HQ website or back office URL, and that's what we'll also be sending out to you as you gain access to that, or your invitation. So when you get that, you'll have your dedicated URL that you'll log in with your SportsEngine account. That gives you visibility into kind of what we walked through tonight.
Okay. Ryan, one of the questions that that I see is should, in the deck you had earlier here tonight, you talked about the memberships and stuff. The memberships on the left-hand side, is that something that a commissioner also sees from a commissioner's account, or is that something more geared towards the local league?
The left-hand navigation with all those,
Yeah.
it's going to almost mirror what a local league looks like when you're in a commissioner's site.
As long as you're a state commissioner and have the admin access, yeah.
Okay.
Right. So there's a little work that we have to do to make sure that you have Babe Ruth access, so you're talking to your leagues and the Babe Ruth parent organization. So once that's set up and you log in as a commissioner, your view will look almost identical to the local leagues, with the exception of season management. You're looking at more of a high level. You don't have the ability to create your own seasons and leagues. You're looking at just the Babe Ruth League seasons and who's submitted underneath you. So it's actually kind of neat. If you go into season management as a commissioner, you're looking at it almost like you're the parent organization and see all my teams who have submitted, who hasn't submitted, etc. So that's where I think we can probably expand on going further. And as we get closer to that roster submission, Rob, is where safety memberships is kind of at the forefront today, is how I see it. Let's get them through, get those leagues understanding. And then as the conversation changes to rostering and making sure that people have what they need there, we're certainly open to getting more resources and helping the commissioners kind of help their leagues.
Okay, that's great. And I think that helps James Ryan in Nevada. And if it didn't, James, please, let us know. But that was one of your questions that you took. One of the other questions here is, I know Ryan's I can take this one, give Ryan a chance to dive through some of the Q&As just to make sure that he's getting some eyes on a couple, as Jessica has been also very diligent here. One of the common questions, and I see it in here too, is about the abuse prevention training. So under Babe Ruth League rules, the abuse prevention training is technically a one and done requirement. As you know, the abuse prevention training was a requirement under the Federal Safe Sports Act that was passed it was actually signed into law in 2018. And required the abuse prevention training. What we have done with Babe Ruth is that we have left the abuse prevention training as part of every time you do a background check. We're using it as a refresher to keep it kind of on the mind and out in front of people. If an individual wants to say, you know what, I don't even want to be bothered to kind of take the questions, the 25 questions and blow through it. As long as they have their certificate from the past and can show that, then they would be fine. They're under Babe Ruth rules, they would not be required to do it. Honestly, for the amount of time that it would take, it would be easier, and we would recommend to use it as a refresher without necessarily going through the videos and stuff. Okay, so hopefully that helps with that. As we're going through here with different questions, those of you who are saying that you did not get an email today, we will go back and see whether or not if
I took care of Tim and Dave already, so you can disregard those.
Okay. But we will continue to go back through here, see whether or not if you might have gotten your link before, potentially months ago, so you would not have gotten an email today. However, we will go back and circle up, make sure that the commissioners have your claim link, so that this way you can make sure that your account gets created.
Just to answer you, Ralph, real quick, it's just easier. You asked for state. If there's like a Cal Ripken, a Babe Ruth, and a softball state commissioner for a certain part of California, all three of you will have access to the same state site, HQ site. So all three of you will be in there for this year. For assistant state commissioners asking, your state commissioner will have to add you as an admin with full access and Babe Ruth League access. So that's for the assistant state commissioners that just asked that.
We also had in here many commissioners write in about the fact that they would like to continue to get more information and more helpful tools to be able to assist leagues. please let us know through your service representative. Obviously, anybody who did not, who indicated, excuse me, in the question and answer session here tonight, we do have yours already. So we will be reaching out again. Like I said, one of the biggest ways to kind of get started, I know it was a huge help to me with getting going in the very beginning, is the Babe Ruth Academy, which Ryan went over earlier tonight, is a good way to get started. And then we can continue, I think, to support one another in supporting the leagues. I know many of you have been very active and providing input to us, which has been very helpful. I know Ken Smith, Don Clark, Paul Link, to name a few, have been very good at providing some different feedback that we have even taken to Ryan and others at SportsEngine, or we've talked internally here amongst our own staff. So those commissioners that are able to and willing to be able to work with your leagues and help you, we will do everything that we can to get you those tools and knowledge to be able to do that. So again, just let us know in the Q&A. If you don't have time in the Q&A to put it, or you want time to think about it, then you can certainly email your service rep at any time to let us know. Ryan or Jess, is there anything else?
No, I appreciate you stressing that, Rob. I'm happy to jump in and assist where needed. Obviously, the more we can kind of, I know this team, the commissioners who are on tonight, are kind of front lines with some of their leagues. So like I said, let's help support you so you can support your leagues and get everybody in a good spot as we continue into 2023.
Okay, great. Jessica, I know you were bouncing back and forth between the Q&As answering. I can almost see you typing. But is there, I know you're muted, but is there anything that you wanted to just add in closing here tonight before we wrap up?
Just thank you guys for hopping on and making it important. I mean, we couldn't do it without you guys, and we are very, very appreciative of you guys caring.
Okay, great. Well, Ryan, I know we've been working together a lot, along with some of the other members of SportsEngine. You have been great to our staff and to our leagues that have been reaching out, and a huge asset. And Jessica, you know, to let all our commissioners know, we are very fortunate with the service reps that we have here in our building, very dedicated, very diligent to their jobs. Jessica has been a huge help ever since we've been doing the training with SportsEngine, and really has been taking the lead here in the office to help us with supporting the leagues. So I really appreciate, Jess, you hopping on and really answering and being in a position to answer a lot of the Q&As here tonight as Ryan was going through the deck. So with that, after thanking both of you for taking the time tonight, I want to thank all the commissioners for once again taking your time to take time out of your schedule to come and join. We will get back to you with any questions or answers that we did not get to this evening that you marked in. And then we will also be sending out, we have a couple in the dugouts coming up. There will be at least one other commissioner addition. I hope at that point that Robert and Daniela and Michael will be joining as we kind of shift gears into going over rules and some other items that are on the commissioner plate. And then we will also be doing a couple other in the dugouts to go over some things from headquarters. And we also have a couple partners that will be joining that will be, I think, really good for people to kind of kick the tires and learn some more information from. So with that, I want to thank Ryan and Jessica once again, and all of our commissioners for taking time out tonight. For Rob Connor here at headquarters, again, thank you, and continue to please provide the feedback and input as we try to work through the 2023 season and the SportsEngine HQ platform. Thanks again.